Good afternoon, and it's a big hello from three of the most senior people from the travel industry who I'm delighted to say have joined us this afternoon for the first session of TTG and Abta LifeLine's Get Travel Talking Week. We're looking to really understand some of the pressures that people in travel have been under, and of course, some of the steps, the positive steps that they've taken for themselves during this brutal period, and where we go from here. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Lisa McAuley. Lisa, who is the Managing Director, Tour Operations B2B for Dnata Travel Europe. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us, Lisa. And on to John. John is the Head of Commercial for Advantage Travel Partnerships. Hi, John.
Hello, Dan.
Good to see you, John. And Ben, welcome, Ben. Ben is Vice President EMEA for Royal Caribbean. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Great to have all of you with us. Now, we're going to go back a few months, actually, to the beginning of 2021, when Tom and my team at TPG launched the Get Travel Talking Pledge campaign. And we invited people across the industry to make pledges for their mental health and to look after their teams in 2021. And I know each of you made a pledge, and really keen now just to kind of revisit the pledge that you made, whether you've been able to stick to that, and actually, how that might have helped you, look after your own health and that of your teams this year. So we'll start with you, Lisa. Let's hear about the pledge that you made, and the effect that it's had.
Okay, so the two key things that I drew out were, one, to aim to get fresh air every single day, because I think it's become so easy in this new virtual world that we're all living in terms of bouncing from one meeting to another meeting via Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, others are out there as well. To get outside, I think, get out walking. So I committed to getting out every single day. And the second part was for me to start meetings. We ask the question, is everybody fine? And most people go, yeah, I'm fine. But to really absolutely drill down and ask people whether they are truly fine. And so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But in terms of the getting out walking, I'm pleased to say that yes, come rain, shine, sunshine, snow, I've managed to get out on a daily basis. And it just has made a massive difference to me, mentally and also physically as well. So I'm pleased to say I've kept up the pledge.
Yeah, okay, that's a great positive start to this conversation. Let's jump over to Ben. Ben, let's hear what your pledge was, and are you sticking to it?
Yeah, well, my pledge was not dissimilar to Lisa's, and we started something at Royal whereby we encouraged all of our staff to trade a couple of daylight hours for sort of the darker, gloomier evening hours. Because, of course, one of the challenges, particularly as we went through the winter, is you've got these sort of short days, and you can start your work in the morning in the dark, and by the time you get to finish, it's dark again. And, of course, it wasn't conducive to necessarily going out walking or running and so forth. So we encouraged everybody to sort of try and take a couple of hours in the middle of the day to get outside, get some fresh air, do some exercise, or frankly, do whatever you want to do.
Great idea.
But get away from the monotony of kind of constant virtual meetings. Yeah. So we've very much been championing that, and I championed that as my pledge. And I've had a good effort at it. I would say that I have tried. Yeah. Probably haven't delivered quite as much as I would like. But I certainly see the benefit of it when I do. And I'm fortunate to kind of live in the countryside now, so I've got plenty of fresh air around me, which definitely just makes you feel infinitely better about things. Yeah, getting that blast of air during the day at some point. So I've certainly been out and about, perhaps not had my couple of hours I would have liked, but I've certainly had some fresh air each day. And I'm delighted to say the whole team has. So it's been really, really well received. And obviously that's been the hardest thing, is keeping everybody engaged and motivated through this difficult time.
Sure. As somebody, running a really big business there, Ben, is it really, I guess it's really difficult to actually commit to taking a couple of hours out in the middle of the day. Is that what you found? That's such a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously work for an American company as well, so of course you end up working your UK day, and then of course the day just keeps giving, because the Miami team come in at lunchtime, and of course they work through to the night. So it has been difficult, and of course we're not in a great shape. Travel's been hit hard, cruise has been hit particularly hard as well. So it's really whatever needs to be done. So it's been difficult to get that balance. And we've had to work hard to encourage people to make sure they take their holidays. Of course, everyone was sort of saving holiday, thinking, well, it'll get better and I'll take my holiday towards the end of the year when I can do something with it. And of course, the reality is that day never came. So of course, people have been carrying holiday over, and we're still carrying holiday over. So we've been trying to get people to just take a day just to get away from the virtual world we're in, put your screens away and do something, because it's good for your well-being. So it has been difficult to kind of encourage people to do that, because of course we want to travel, and everybody wants to travel, and they're trying to save their holidays to actually travel as opposed to spend it in the garden. But it's been good to encourage people to get out.
Yeah. And now there's plenty of people with 50 days odd of holidays stored up that they're rolling over. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge. John, let's hear from you then. What was your pledge at the beginning of the year, and are you sticking to it?
Now, I'd love to tell you that we decided to do something completely different, but no surprise, we done something very similar. So again, our pledge was to make sure that us and our staff got outside. So whether that's walking, running, cycling, exercising, doing whatever. But again, I think it was important, to Ben's point, that particularly in the I guess the darkest depths of winter, that people went out during daylight. But I think that time away was invaluable. Time to, I guess, do something different. Perhaps do something you enjoy as a distraction. And I think as well, we were conscious that I think for some people, it's quite easy to get up and go out and walk or run or cycle, do whatever you're doing. For others, they kind of want to do more of a team thing. So of course, quite impossible, particularly earlier in the year, but nevertheless we did set up some virtual teams where we had walking challenges, step challenges, etc. And we found loads of people took part, and the great thing was it was, albeit virtual fun, but everyone got quite competitive about it too. And that worked really well, and it was quite good to see all the banter and everyone exchanging steps and arguing about whether their app was working or not, and were those points genuine or not, or their steps genuine or not. But I think the reality is, the nice thing is, in the main, most people have stuck to doing something or the other, and have realised the value of stepping away and taking time out.
And how about you personally, though? Have you started? Are you going out every day?
I run a lot anyway. Always have done. So I've continued to do that. Maybe run a bit further, run a bit longer. But yeah, for me, I mean, the irony is what we're doing now. We've all spent so long doing this, so long on video calls. And I think particularly if you go back to March of last year and the early part of this, my God, we're all on this all day, every day, and your day came to an end, your working day came to an end. And then you had the family and friends as well. So it was like all day on Zoom calls, business, all evening on Zoom calls, family. And actually, it just got utterly exhausting. So I think for me, this escapism, this kind of time away from this, is massively important. And I've really stuck to it. And I think a lot of us have, and we've been really disciplined, but the business has been really supportive in making sure we do it as well. Yeah. So that's a big help when everyone's saying, look, get out, go and do something.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said there about last March when this started. And at that time, and we're now talking, 14 months ago, none of us conceived, at that time, that 14 months later, we'd still be spending the majority of our time working in this way, living in this way. Have you found that your attitudes to this and the way that you've looked after yourselves, has changed over that time, John?
Yeah, well, Dan, do you know what? I say this all the time, so people are sick of me hearing it, but in some ways, I'm so grateful that back last March, I was naive enough to think that this wouldn't go on this long. Because I think if we knew then that this is how long we're going to have to ride it out for, I think it would have been really difficult to compute, really. So in some ways, the fact that I was naive was a nice thing. But yeah, I guess you get, you kind of get into it, and you get to grips with it and you understand it, but you also get a much better understanding of what you personally can deal with and what your touch points are. And, and I know that there's only so long I can concentrate on one of these calls. My attention span isn't brilliant. So
we're keeping it snappy, John. We're keeping it snappy.
Yeah, if I drift off in a minute, I apologize, so there's an attention span thing. But I think the other thing is as well, which you realise, is that none of us ever been here before. It's a completely unique experience. We can't look at a textbook or a guidebook or look at something to say how we cope, because we've not done it before. And I also think what we have to be really mindful of is everybody's experience is completely different. Yeah. Just because we're all following the same guidelines and we're all under the same restrictions, it doesn't mean we're having the same restrictions, the same experiences. We've all got different home lives, we've all got different pressure points. And I think it's important to obviously understand what your own touch points are. And I touched on one of mine is about the attention span on here. My other one is and Ben touched on it earlier, I'm totally desperate to travel. I feel caged at the moment. I've not stayed in this country for this long forever. Whether it's business or personal, I travel all the time. I'm never a person that takes leave and has a week off at home to paint the lounge. I always travel. So I'm finding that incredibly difficult, but hopefully not long now. But yeah, I think it's about being mindful that everybody's experience is different. Yeah. Knowing what your own touch points are, but also understanding your teams as well.
It's very true, isn't it? We see these friendly faces on the screens, but none of us have a clue what's going on behind us, and we have to respect the fact that everyone is, has their own battles, their own perspective. Lisa, let's just hear how your thinking has changed over time, because we really had no idea what was going to happen last March, did we?
Yeah, I think it's a cliche, but actually lockdown, it really has been a reset for me. So I haven't known a period of my life, at least for the last 25 years, where I've not travelled as part of work. And then similar to John, if ever I had any annual leave, I would always jump on a plane, train or automobile to go away. So that's 25 years of constant traveling, and I would be away 3 to 4, 5 nights, sometimes more, overseas. Yeah. So, come lockdown, the rug was pulled from under me, and, no travel. And I don't think I ever would have got to a point where I would have proactively chosen to stop traveling for work. So to begin with, actually, it was a novelty, and I actually really enjoyed it because I like spending time at home. I love actually where I live. I'm similar to Ben, fortunate to live on the edge of the Peak. I'm on the countryside. I'm in the Peak District. My teenage daughter, who's a social butterfly, was forced to spend time with me, so that was good. And I was just spending more time with family. So it has been a reset, because the time that I would spend commuting on a daily basis, a couple of hours or 4 hours or more to get from here to Glasgow or Leyland, I spent going out and, as I said, walking and just contexting all of the challenges that we were going through. But I think, to John's point, everybody's experience is so personal. And, I think both personally and professionally, I've got a number of people who turn to me. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, and I play all of those roles. And then obviously I've got my role at Gold Medal, and of course you have to be, and you want to be there for people. But I think what I've really learned is that unless you look after yourself, and unless I look after my mental health, I can't look after others. So, my father's been living with a terminal illness now, and his health has deteriorated. My daughter's due to take her GCSEs. She had the rug pulled from under her. So, I've got quite a lot going on personally, but then professionally, you're appearing on camera and, you're going, yeah, I'm fine. And actually within dnata, we have something called the KIT newsletter, Keep in Touch. And it was something that we developed and designed when we all moved to home working, to try and still encourage people and foster that team working culture that we absolutely have across Gold Medal. And I wrote a column and an article just explaining how I'd struggled with the winter lockdown. So lockdown 1, fine, loved it, weather great, absolutely fine. Lockdown 2, okay. Winter lockdown, really struggled, because I had a combination of all these personal things going on in my life, combined with what for me is just, you know, my worst case scenario, which is dark early, going dark early and dark mornings as well. So I'm a sunshine, I'm a snowbird. And actually I wrote this column, and then following the publication of that, I had a number of people contact me also telling me their struggles as well. And I think, you know, when you're leading a business, if you can open up and be honest by that, it sets the tone for actually people feeling comfortable to be able to talk about the challenges that they're encountering.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's exactly why, you know, we're so keen to hear from you guys, you know, today, because I think the people at the top of the business set the tone around, you know, some of this stuff. And, you know, if you're saying it's okay not to be okay and to discuss, you know, transparently what's going on, it's, you know, it's a good thing for the teams. Ben, just tell us a little bit about how your thinking has changed over the past 14 months. You know, of course, cruise in your industry, you know, in particular, was at the eye of the storm at the beginning, so really, really tough at the beginning. Although, you know, something quite good happening now with the staycations all taking off. But tell us personally about, you know, how your feelings have changed over the course of the crisis.
Yeah, sure. I think thinking back was, as Lisa and John were talking there about kind of the journey I've been. I mean, I've been a bit like a roller coaster, because I fix things. I mean, that's typically what I do in my career, is I fix things, and I try and make things better. And in this particular instance, I've frankly been unable to fix anything. Jimmy, you can't fix the pandemic on your own. It's just not something you can do. So it's been really challenging for me just to kind of feel like I'm kind of moving things along. And we've all had loads of days where it's felt like absolute Groundhog Day. I mean, sometimes I look back and go, do you know what? I should have just taken the year off work and done nothing, because I'd be no worse off today than I would a year ago. Yeah. But I've never worked harder. So it's been really frustrating. I mean, I remember back to when we first decided to shut the office. I whisked my team away for an overnight at a hotel, and I basically said, look, the office is shut. We'll have our meeting in the hotel. I think this is all a furore about nothing. I think we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and then we haven't been back since. I mean, and it's crazy how it's kind of developed and evolved. But of course, none of us expected it to go on for this long, and it's been tough. I mean, it's been really tough. I mean, I think the point Lisa made about everyone's got a story, everyone's got stuff going on, and I think it's in normal work times, we're probably not as aware of people's challenges, because you're in the office, you've got your game face on, and you're there, and then you're home. And I think because everybody's working from home, there's a bit more of yourself on screen all the time, and you can't really hide some of the frustrations and moods that you have, and it's a bit harder. So I think we've all had to be a bit more candid with one another and a bit more frank and honest about how we're feeling and what's working and not working. And I think people have opened up a little bit more about some of the challenges they've got going on. Because they've had to, because the realities of working in this environment and having all of that going on at home is also quite challenging.
Yeah.
And I remember when we had, I think it was after the first lockdown, I mean, we've got people in call centres who they're sharing a flat with 3 other individuals. They're all youngsters. One's on the stairs, one's in the kitchen, one's in a bedroom, and they're kind of rotating because that's all the space they have. And you think it's just really difficult for people to go and do that. So it's been a real challenge, and we've just really worked hard together to kind of keep everyone motivated and enthused. And of course, the upturn and the chance of at least some domestic cruising has been a massive tonic to everybody in the cruise industry, I'm sure, and certainly at Royal Caribbean. It's nice to have something a little bit more positive to focus on, and the omens look more positive. So we'll see.
It's actually really nice listening to you and hearing some of the positives that you're all coming out with. You know, the positives, whether it's the family life at home or whether you understand, you know, the teams that you work with, you know, better than beforehand. And maybe in a way it's opened up all of our kind of emotional intelligence as business leaders. And perhaps that's going to help us create better teams and better businesses in the future. You know, are there many positives that we're taking out of this, do you think?
I think one thing, going to that point and actually going back to what Ben said just there, I think what this has done is humanized hierarchy, because you're allowing people access into your home. You know, I've had my team and wider team have inadvertently met my dad, met my daughter, met my husband. All of them were fully clothed, because I have seen horror stories of people wandering in the background with semi-naked. You know, my dad was, I recall just a couple of weeks ago, my dad had come to collect me. He was going to treat me to take me to the pub on the first Friday of the week the pubs opened a couple of weeks ago. And I was on a call with Mary Wilson, our HR director, who's also from Glasgow. My dad's from Glasgow. And I said, oh, come and say hello. So introduced them. My dad then started flirting. I mean, he's 78 years old and there's no shame. And he started flirting with Mary, my HR director. So, you know, we have allowed people access and into our homes like it's never happened before. So I think that goes back to that humanizing hierarchy. You know, I think that's a positive in some ways, but also you don't have any hiding space. To Ben's point, you know, you are on show constantly, which is coming full circle, why I think it's really important to be able to step away. But you know, I think we're all quite tough cookies. We've got to be, to do the kind of jobs that you do, and I also think you have to have a level of optimism and dig deep to find that optimism. We're also realists as well, but you know, a pessimistic mindset is going to do nothing for anybody. In you know, let's be realistic and optimistic. Pessimism isn't going to get us anywhere.
Yeah. No, those are great points, and I think there is a big difference between being blindly optimistic and being realistically positive, you know, as we go forward. I think, you know, we've all come to understand that. And whereas I started this personally, probably blindly optimistic, thinking it was all going to be over by April or May, you know, I think this thing has taught us many, many lessons. And tell us some more positives, you know, around teams, perhaps. John, in the business, what are the good things that are coming out of it?
I mean, I guess we've said some of them there. I think that we suddenly probably all have a much deeper understanding of the people that we're working with, and not just on a professional level, but on a personal level as well. And actually, you know, just touching on it now, I mean, I think it's quite nice we've all joined this call and none of us have kind of got a nice corporate, well, Dan, you've got a little bit of corporate going on behind you. Got the corporate background going on, you know. We are genuinely letting people into our homes, you know, so you can see our wallpaper or not the wallpaper, whatever, and you're getting really insights into people. So I think it's changed the dynamics of relationships with staff and with teams. And I think, you know, for a long time, people have talked about, I suppose, a new way of working, and that new way of working isn't so much based around the old style of very much, you know, the boss is cracking the whip and the staff are doing what they're told. It is much more about collaboration with your teams, you know, about getting the best out of them. It's about partnerships, and I suppose this has forced us into it, you know, and I guess ultimately, I think that we will have to look back on this, and we'll definitely be able to draw positives out. I think whatever happens, we can always eventually find some positives. But I think for me, that collaboration thing is a really important thing. The fact that we are working with our teams differently, and I think it's in some ways, you know, it's almost more genuine. It's more of a real experience because, you know, there is perhaps a little bit less corporate speak around it, and we are more in touch with what people are really feeling and doing and saying. And perhaps there's been times in the past, you know, we might have agreed or disagreed with something, but we kind of towed the line. And I think we've been a bit more realistic with people, and we sort of, you know, I get your point, I understand where you're at. Yeah, just a bit more empathy. And I think Lisa mentioned earlier on humility, really. So I think it's made us all a lot more human. And I suppose as well, you know, again, we've all said it, when this first started, we never knew it would go on for so long. But I also, you know, I think all of us kind of thought, well, what we will be doing as the time goes on, you know, what will this move into? And whoever knew we'd be this busy when we haven't got anything to sell. And that, I think that's been such a kind of a big learning point for us. You know, you kind of thought after a few weeks, well, what's the next phase of this? What will we be doing next? And here we are, say 14 months on, and it's still full pelt. And we've all learned so many more new skills. I think that's the other thing as well, because, it just goes to prove that your day job, you kind of was quite comfortable with and you knew what you were doing. And I say, and I talk about this a lot, again, if you go back to last year, I think for the first 3 months, everybody was utterly exhausted. And that was because every time the phone rang, every time you got an email from somebody, you probably didn't know the answer to their question. So you either had to go away and find an answer, you had to go and ask somebody for an answer, or you had to be really creative and make an answer up, find the best solution for the problem at the time. So I think it's made everybody a lot more creative. And I think that's a huge positive, that we've all surprised ourselves with what we can do outside of what we usually do.
Yeah. And there is an irony here, isn't there? You're all talking about how your teams are working closely together and collaborating, and yet, in a physical sense, the teams have never been further apart. And yet, have improved communication somehow.
Complete. And also, look, all of us, all of our businesses are now home working. We're all home working, but we're all in this environment during a period of crisis. We're not doing this during a period of business being normal and it all being good and everything's great. We're doing this during crisis. So actually, this model we're in now, we actually haven't tested during a really good time. We've only tested during a crisis.
Something else to look forward to. Yeah. Just before we bring the conversation to a close, I'd just like to hear a little bit about how you've been helping your teams, with their own mental health and with their own resilience. What kind of strategies that you put in place sort of company-wide, and anything that anybody else can learn from. Ben, I know Royal Caribbean and all the brands there have been doing a lot for the teams, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and I think it's interesting. Obviously, we're a collection of brands really underneath the Royal Caribbean group, and we've never worked more closely together. I can honestly say that in the last year and a half, and I know Joe and the other brand leaders would say the same thing. I think we've also probably never been prouder of the teams we have, and probably never had as much admiration for them as we have, because I think it's easy to take people for granted in an office environment. I think going through the sort of crisis that we've been through and the extraordinary conditions we've been living under, it's given us all, I think, an insight into what people have been going through, and a greater level of appreciation and understanding of how difficult that challenge has been. And that's whether people have been on furlough, whether people have had to jump into different roles, assume different responsibilities, take more on, etc., etc. But everybody, to a person at Royal Caribbean Group, has really pulled their weight and pulled together at a time of real adversity. So I think that's a really fantastic thing. And we have really worked hard as a leadership group to manage these things together, and provide the teams with a consistent tone of voice and a consistent level of support across all of the brands. And we have a number of programs around mental health and wellbeing. We have support available for people. We have got all of these different cycling, running and walking and competitions. We've got bingo nights coming. We've got virtual escape rooms. And we've really OD'd on all of that kind of stuff, because we've known how important it is to give people something extra. And of course, whilst many have got families that kind of dominate their time outside of work, many haven't. And of course, it's been great to give staff a chance to kind of get together outside of work, if you like, and facilitate that where it's been appropriate. And we've made it very optional. And I genuinely say the take-up of these things that we've put on has been fantastic.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of work on that in the office. And then, of course, from a crew perspective, it's been a massive effort. I mean, it took us 9 months to get them all home. It'll probably take us 9 months to get them all back.
Yeah. And
of course, it's not been easy for them. So we've had significant schemes and work with them. We've had employee relief funds and financial assistance as well, because of course that's been difficult, that side of things. So we've really tried to do our best and look after the best interest of our teams, because the reality is, without our crew, we don't have anything to come back to.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, we've got a large number of ships, but without the crew inside them, fit and well cared for, with good mental wellness, we don't have the product that we aspire to give all of our guests. So that's where it starts and finishes with us. So we've done a lot on that.
Yeah, so real focus on the people. And what about at dnata, Lisa? What steps have been taken to look after the teams?
So we have a program called Belong, and we have ERGs, employee resource groups, that look after 5 different areas of the Belong initiative, and mental health and wellbeing being one of them. And actually, hats off to Ben and Joe and Royal. Pre-pandemic, this was something that myself and I took to of our people and culture team down to meet with Joe and her team to say, to understand and to learn from Royal Caribbean. I think for me, they were the benchmark really that what I wanted to aim for. So we surveyed the entire UK workforce, and actually mental health came out as the #1 by a fair proportion of as well, #1 initiative that people wanted us to focus on. So fortunately, we've done a lot of the groundwork pre-pandemic, and then it's just been a case of executing it, which is really tough when you're furloughing people, you're making people redundant, and you're thin on the ground. But that was really, really super important to us. So we've set up the employee resource groups, and we've got all of the support initiatives that you would expect a big employee to have in place, collaborating with people like Mind and various other support organisations. And then on a more personal level, as part of my pledge, coming back to what I'd said, which was to really check in on the team, I've introduced a 45-minute health and wellbeing call every Friday afternoon, perfect timing, myself and my direct reports, and we jump on a call and we talk about anything and everything, not work. During the course of this, we've had people who would certainly, one lady described herself as a non-runner, doing the couch to 5K. One person bought a pedometer and it religiously now does 10,000 steps, and actually that's become an addiction, so we might need to look at that one. We've covered anything from hairdressing to decorating to eating habits, just to chat. And I think that for me is just bring it down on a granular basis, because not everybody buys into corporate initiatives. So how do you hone in? And then my direct reports are then cascading that down so it's relevant to their teams as well. So there's plenty of conversations that go on during that 45 minutes, but I can't share it. Otherwise I'll have to kill you all.
And everybody watching this as well.
Yes.
This theme of transparency seems quite important, actually, that everyone is a lot more open than they were, with their teams. And in some ways that's reassuring, when people are very nervous about the future of the business and of the whole industry. And John, just finish from your side, any specifics at Advantage?
Yeah, again, look, I suppose we were fortunate, as many others were, that some of the groundwork had been done pre-pandemic. So we had a mental health and wellbeing program in place already. So I think our staff have been really supported on many levels, whether that's from within the business, whether that's from encouragement within the business, but also there are independent resources for them as well, available 24/7. So if somebody needs to talk to somebody, they're at the end of the phone, they can get access to that. We've done things like Wellbeing Wednesday, where we've given staff access to learn about eating well, sleeping well, about, taking digital breaks, all that kind of stuff. So we've been as supportive as we possibly can on every level, really. It's been a big part of what we're all about. And likewise, we've also got, we've on the members intranet, we have a wellness and mental health section as well. So again, so our members can access all the information and resources and make it available to their own staff too. So yeah, fortunate, I think, that we had this in place before the pandemic started as well.
It's going to be very interesting now to see how many of these things continue in the new world now. Great. Well, just to finish, just to come back to you on those pledges then, will you continue in the same way, to get that fresh air, to take that time out of the day, or any new pledges that might emerge to looking after yourself? Any more points there, Lisa?
Will I continue? Yes, is the very short answer. I don't know how I wouldn't now. It's set me off on a different path, and it's keeping me sane, getting outside and just some free thinking.
Yeah, good. And Ben?
Yeah, I don't think the world will be the same again. I genuinely don't. I think there will be more balance to where people work, how they work. I never believed that we'd be able to work as effectively as we have managed to virtually. I'm probably the world's biggest fan of being in an office and being able to have my team there and see them. And I personally love that instant collaboration that you can get from team members. So I don't think it'll be the same again. And I think we've got to pick the best elements. And I think it's about balance. I think we would all be the first to argue we'd love to get together this afternoon and have a nice lunch out and meet up again and various things. But equally, I think we all recognise virtual working probably has a role to play.
Yeah.
I think people who work regionally have never felt more connected. And I think that's something we need to hold on to. And equally, I think we've probably all had a bit more time with our families, which is something obviously important that we need to hang on to as well. And certainly for me personally, that'll be something that I try to get the balance right on when we start to come out from this.
Great points. And John, are your lifestyle changes here to stay?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm looking forward to maybe is being able to share those lifestyle changes with other people and not do it all on my own or with immediate family members, because I mean, look, we're people, we're social by nature, and we crave contact. So I think that's been, that it'll be nice to share some of these places we've found and discovered and things we've done with other people as well. So I think, absolutely, it's part of the route forward.
Yeah, great point. So taking some of that stuff we've learned on our own back into a social sphere as well. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. There were so many interesting and useful points there that we brought out, I think, during the conversation. So thank you very much again for joining us, Lisa, John and Ben, and have a good week.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.